You are listening to I Survived the Wild Outdoors podcast, where real outdoors men and women share their heroic tales of survival. I'm your host, Brad Mathewson, and this is their story. Today's episode is one of those stories that sticks with you, not just because it's intense, but because it holds a real, hard-earned lesson about being present and not letting adrenaline take the wheel when you're out in the wild. Our guest is Leon Brown, a man many of you might recognize from a previous episode. Leon runs Clark Fork Outfitters in northern Idaho, and he spent more time in the backcountry than most of us could ever dream of. He's the kind of guy who's seen it all, but even with all that experience, sometimes nature and a split decision can still humble you. On this particular day, Leon was out hunting with his dad and a couple of close friends when Leon's father spots a nice 6x6 bull and makes a clean shot. Now, as they say, the fun is over and the work begins. The plan is to load the elk onto the back of a four-wheeler and take it down to an old two-track where they can get it in the back of a truck. But sometimes adrenaline can cloud judgment, and moments after reaching his destination of the road, the four-wheeler is upside down, crushing him, as Leon finds himself sandwiched between his elk and the four-wheeler. So let's get right into it now. Hello, Leon. Can you tell us what happened that day?
Okay, well, I guess for beginners, for listeners, this is Leon Brown. I live in northern Idaho. Many of you probably heard me on here recently. Brad and I did a pod about a bear hunt that I was on not long ago. But at any rate, like I said, I live in northern Idaho. My wife and I own Clark Fork Outfitters here in North Idaho. Lifelong resident of northern Idaho. Long time guiding outfitter. I've been guiding for over 20 years and been outfitting for about 13 or 14 years now, since we bought our business, Clark Fork Outfitters. But anyway, Brad wanted me to talk about an elk hunt that I had mentioned to him, and obviously, kind of the theme of his show being close encounters and things that dangers that people encounter when they're out in the field. And so when I was in my early 20s, I think I was about 21 years old, so this would have been 20 almost 30 years ago now, because I'm almost 50. I had killed a bull elk in an area, a young bull, just a spike, during our elk rifle season. And I had called my dad and told him about the hunt and where I was at, and I told him that he should go back up there and look, because I knew the herd bull and the main herd was still in the area. So he went up there the next day, I believe it was, and he hiked around looking for him, and he ended up hearing a bull bugling, and he wasn't sure if it was a bull elk or a hunter, but when he got over to the area where he'd heard the bugling coming from, there was a bunch of fresh elk tracks and whatever, and so he got back a hold of me when he got out of the woods, and he said, that bull was bugling up there, or there was a bull bugling up there. You should come and call for me. So I agreed, and this was right after work one day. I'd just gotten home from work, probably about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so. So we ran back up there that evening, and I bugled a couple times, and I got this bull to answer. And we chased him around till dark that night, and we were close. We were really close to him. It was in pretty thick brush and timber and whatever. And I know we were within 50 yards of him a couple of times at least, but we just never could see him. And but he was very, very, very vocal, especially for that time of the year. Usually by the time our rifle hunt opens in October, they'll bugle some, but they're typically not just, real fired up. But this bull was. I'm guessing he must have had a hot cow, probably a second cycle cow that didn't get bred in September or whatever. And but every time I would bugle at this bull, he'd bugle right back. And so, like I said, we chased him around till dark, and it was very exciting. But we never got him. And so I don't remember if the next day was a weekend or if I decided to take the day off or what it was. But we went back up there the following morning, and once again we got right in on this bull. Bull fired right back up, and we chased him around. And at one point we got in real tight on him, and we kind of blew him out. And he ran way up on this hill, and Dad and I had kind of gotten separated. And I wasn't exactly sure where Dad was. Dad had went ahead trying to get to the bull because obviously he was the one with the tag, and I had stayed back. And so I was kind of wandering around there looking for Dad. Of course, this is back. We didn't have radios back then or anything. This was 30 years ago. I was kind of wandering around looking for him and trying to figure out where he was. And then I heard that bull start bugling again. He was quite a ways up the mountain by then. He was probably, 400 or 500 yards above me, a good quarter mile, I would say, maybe more, and maybe a half mile or more. I don't even know. It was a long time ago. But I just kind of started working my way up towards this bull and bugling back and forth with him, and kept him going. And I got up there where I was pretty close. I was within a couple hundred yards of him. And I just kind of stopped, and I was bugling, and the bull was bugling back, and so on and so forth. And I still didn't really know where Dad was. And then all of a sudden, a shot rang out, and it was right where the bull was. And luckily, it turned out it was my dad. He'd also heard the bull and took off going up after it. And so that was a relief to me, because I didn't know if a different hunter had gotten in on it or what had happened. But it was all really exciting. And I don't know if you've never experienced that, being right in on a bull elk that's just bugling. I mean, it will raise the hair on the back of your neck pretty much. There aren't a whole lot of things in this life that I've ever done anyway that really compare to getting in tight on a big bull bugling like that. And so I got up there, I hollered, and he answered, and I got up there, and it's a really nice 6-point bull. And so this was, it was just awesome. It was great. Well, not too far down the hill from where this bull was, there's an old skid road. There was a network of old skid trails that came up the hill, but there was an old road down below it. And this was on some timber company ground that had been logged periodically over the years. And at the time, it was pretty grown over. It hadn't been logged in quite a while, but you could still tell where the old skid trails and whatnot were. So after we got to kind of looking at the situation, I was like, if we can go get a 4-wheeler, and bring a saw up here, I think we can clear some of this brush, and I think we can get a 4-wheeler right to this bull, and then we can skid him on down to the road. So that's what we ended up doing, and borrowed a 4-wheeler and got a chainsaw and a chainsaw winch as well, and got back up there that afternoon, and my dad and a couple of friends and myself sawed our way up in there. We got the four-wheeler as close as we could to the elk, which wasn't all that far. We got within about 100, maybe 200 yards of the elk, probably 100 yards. And then we used the chainsaw winch to pull him down the rest of the way to where we could actually get the four-wheeler to. And we got the bull tied to the back of the four-wheeler. And we had the brow tines pulled up onto the back of the rack of the four-wheeler. And, so the rack was kind of laying back, and his chin was up out of the dirt and everything. And so he would pull pretty good like that, because, his antlers and his nose and chin and everything wasn't digging into the ground. And came down off that steep trail, that old trail, that old skid trail that we had cleared out, and got down on the old road bed. And as we were going down that old road bed, I was going over some pretty good humps that they had put in the road. We call them like Kelly humps or water bars out here, where I was going up and over those, and didn't have any real problem with that. But when we got down to the actual main road, where we had the pickups parked, we got to looking at this situation, and I was like, well, this is great. We got the bull out whole, but even 4 adult men are not going to pick up a mature 6-point bull elk and just sit him in the back of a pickup. How are we gonna load him? And and this is where I guess I'll say what probably, I mean, aside from my age, I was in my early 20s at the time and whatever. So maybe a little more reckless than I am now. But a lot of what probably got this situation to happen, or what caused this situation to happen, is just purely adrenaline. I mean, we were just pumped up. I mean, this was one of the most exciting hunts that I'd ever been on, even though I didn't do the shooting. I was pretty fired up about it. But at any rate, there was a fairly somewhat gradual cut bank there on the edge of the road that I thought, in my mind, and it was I don't remember if there was any ditch at all, but if there was any ditch at all, it was very shallow. And I thought to myself, if I can get this bull pulled up onto that cut bank, it was fairly open there where I didn't have brush or trees in my way. I thought I could pull him up onto the bank, and if I could just get him up there far enough, we could back the truck up to the bank and then be able to, pick his back legs up or whatever a little bit and get him started onto the tailgate, and then just slide him backwards right off of that cut bank and into the back of the pickup. Well, so I pulled up to it, and I started up the bank, and as soon as I got where the four-wheeler was completely on the bank, I really gave it the gas, thinking that I was probably going to spin my tires, and I was just going to need all the power I could get to get that elk up onto that bank. Well, the tires did not spin at all. They hooked up, and the entire four-wheeler rotated off of those back wheels, and it just flipped straight over onto that elk. Of course, this is a good-sized 6-point bull, and all of his tines are straight up. And I had one of the royal tines hit me right in the center of the back, kind of right between my shoulder blades, and it slid up one side of my back, and it went through both of my shirts. I was wearing a flannel shirt and a cotton t-shirt or something underneath of that. It went through both of my shirts. It went right up in between my armpit. It never did puncture the skin, but then it punched back out the front side of my shirts and went through the seat on the four-wheeler and into the airbox. And then that would have been the G4, the Royal Tine. The G5 was right behind my ear, and it had my head really cranked around, and just had my head pinned all the way to one side. The G3 was like right across the small of my back, or the middle of my back, small of my back. And the G2 was coming right across my stomach. And none of them actually ever punctured my skin, but they did. A couple of them left some marks. And apparently, and this all happened so fast that I don't remember reacting to it, but apparently I must have, because I had a raspberry that started right in the center of my back, right between my shoulder blades, and ran all the way over to my armpit. And so I'm guessing that as that was happening, I was twisting to avoid that pressure. And thankfully back then I had pretty good reaction, pretty good reflexes. And anyways, I wasn't really hurt at that point, but I was completely pinned in underneath of this four-wheeler, and the four-wheeler was still tied fast to the elk antlers. Of course, my dad and my three buddies, they come running over there, and they grabbed the four-wheeler and they tried to roll it one way off of me, and I was like, no, don't do that, so that's gonna break my neck or whatever. And then they tried to roll it the other way, and I was like, don't do that either. You're going to break my arm, or well, I don't remember what it was. But no matter which way they tried to roll the four-wheeler, it was putting me in a real painful bind. So they ended up getting the back rack of the four-wheeler detached from the elk antlers, and between the three of them, they managed to just pick the four-wheeler straight up off of me and flip it over out, off onto the ground, back onto its wheels. And, I don't really remember exactly how we ended up getting the elk in the back of the truck. We did get it in the truck whole eventually. I don't remember exactly how we managed that. Probably just a lot of sweating and cussing and whatever. But, out of the things that I've had happen to me in the last, 40 some years of running around the mountains in North Idaho. And I've actually been, spent quite a bit of time in a lot of other places besides northern Idaho. But that's probably as close as I've ever come to actually dying, or having something happen that could have killed me while I was on a hunt. And so that's the story. And I think the takeaway from it is, anytime you're pulling any kind of antlered game, whether it's a deer, an elk, a moose, anything, really think about what would happen if, that machine flipped over onto the animal. And I think the other takeaway from it is, no matter what's going on, a lot of times we get, as hunters and sportsmen and whatever, we get in the moment and we get really, charged up by the adrenaline from a really exciting hunt like that was. And, it can cause you to maybe not think through things you're doing well enough. And so I think those are probably the two things that I would, take away from that situation. Is just, definitely those antlers are dangerous. And I would say that, that real adrenaline rush can be somewhat dangerous too. I mean, it just causes you to maybe not think as clearly as a person should.
So have you guys ever tried, I've never seen anybody try to load a full-size elk into a truck. I mean, it was something you guys have done before?
We had been able to load a couple of them, and we've used come-alongs and things like that. I mean, you can't just, like I said, even with 4 guys, you're not just going to pick a bull elk up and set him in the back of a truck. If I had to take a guess at it, I'd say that bull on the hoof probably weighed 750 pounds. So, even once you've got him gutted out, you're still looking at well over 600 pounds, maybe more. And of course, we never weighed him. I don't know exactly what he weighed, but I can tell you he was, even with the guts out, he was far in excess of 500 pounds.
So you had the weight of you're telling me they had the weight of the elk and the weight of the 4-wheeler on you?
No, the elk was on the ground still. The 4-wheeler was on top of me, and
okay.
I was sandwiched between the elk and the 4-wheeler.
Oh, sandwiched between. Oh, okay.
And
so you got the weight of the 4-wheeler on you.
I had gotten flipped over and on. When the 4-wheeler flipped over, it flipped me over back first.
Oh,
right onto the elk rack.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to picture this in my head. Okay, so you're like in a sandwich.
12 really sharp, hard daggers, coming right at you. And obviously, and because I was not facing it, I couldn't even see it coming. It was just really extremely fortunate for me that I didn't end up with an elk tine through my chest or through my guts or through something, through my back of my skull for that matter. And, I think, I just, like I said, I was just extremely fortunate to walk away from that with nothing but some scratches and a torn shirt.
Yeah, for sure. And what you said about hunters and getting excited. Yeah. I think is us as hunters, when you get in a situation of, you put so much into a hunt, and when we get the big payoff, and you finally get that animal, I think you get like a tunnel vision. You know what I mean? You just I can't just, you just want to get this elk or bear or deer, whatever it is, back home. And so, you can show people. And I've been on some situations where I've seen people get, let's say, skinning out a mule deer, and there was way too many knives going on at one time. And someone got cut pretty good because, we're just trying to hurry up as fast as we can because we're losing light, and instead of just, one guy is using the knife, the other guy's just going to hold the leg, and the other guy's going to hold the light. And I've seen another situation where a gun went off because the hunter who shot the deer put another round in, and then was so excited about getting the deer, ran up to it, and the gun went off because he didn't have the safety on. Lucky he didn't shoot somebody.
Right. Well, and that's something I was just, when you started talking about the excitement factor, that was something that I was going to mention. I think that is, as an outfitter and a guide, I've seen it a lot where that is, and I've never had a situation where anybody got shot or anything like that. But I've seen a lot of times where you get somebody they're on such a high that, as the hunting partner or the guide or whatever, I think that's a good thing for us to try to remember is, hey, remind your buddy to check his chamber and make sure he cleared the chamber when he was done or whatever, because it's easy to, it's easy to overlook those details in that moment.
Yep.
But it's still important to, practice firearm safety all the time, no matter what's going on. And so, I mean, whether it's, whether you're by yourself or you're with a friend, but I think like I say, as a hunting partner or as a guide or whatever, if you're the if you're the bystander, if you're the observer to this, don't be afraid to, say, hey, did you clear your chamber or whatever? Even though that is not what anybody wants to talk about at that moment.
No.
And you don't want to detract from their moment, but the regret that comes with a bad decision, will far outweigh, the whatever that detracts from the moment. And I think as a hunter, if your friend or your guide or whatever says something to you, don't take it personal. I mean, it's just one of those things that we all got to kind of look out for each other a little bit if we can.
Yeah, just safety protocol,
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it many, I don't know, probably half a dozen times. I've just seen major safety things happen when the excitement's going on,
Mm-hmm.
Guns not get pointed in safe directions, and yeah, luckily no one's gotten seriously hurt other than the one cut that I seen that time. But yeah,
right.
and all that's what accidents are. It's something, unforeseen, or sometimes it can be prevented by, just making sure you slow down and process the moment and take your time. There's no giant rush. I mean, the hard work, you already scored on the animal, and all time to relax and celebrate. But yeah, you still get that high, and it just, I don't know, kind of makes you stupid sometimes.
Yeah, no, the adrenaline factor, well, that's why we do it. I mean, if you didn't get excited about it, if you didn't get a little bit of an adrenaline rush from it, I think you'd be kind of missing the point of hunting. But, like I say, it's definitely a lot easier to make a, fatal or at least very detrimental mistake, in a moment like that. And so.
Well, thank you, Leon, for coming on and sharing another one of your stories.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about when you were talking just a minute ago, and I remember when I was a young boy, I also saw a situation where we were dragging a bear out one time, and we had the guy who had shot the bear. He was actually shooting one of those Ruger 1044s.
Okay.
So it's just this auto-loading Ruger 44 Magnum rifle, just like the 1022, but it's a 44 mag.
Okay.
Anyways, as we're dragging the bear out, going through thick brush and whatnot, I guess apparently, I don't know whether he originally put the safety on after he originally had shot the bear or not, but suddenly, boom, this gun goes off. And I mean, luckily it was over his shoulder. It was pointed up in the air. Nobody was hurt or anything like that. But it sure got everybody's attention.
Oh yeah.
And, I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if he just forgot to put the safety back on or what, but, because it was a semi-automatic, it had automatically reloaded itself. And whether he just forgot he obviously forgot to clear the chamber.
Yep.
But, however that transpired, that was a long time ago. Like I said, I was just a young boy when that happened. But once again, same kind of thing. The excitement of the moment just didn't stop to think, hey, wait a minute, this gun reloads itself or whatever, And so that's another example of how, that adrenaline, in the moment, he was just thrilled that he'd gotten a bear and wasn't really thinking about his gun. And so always got to take the time to, make sure you're doing your firearm safety and basically just being safe about everything.
Yeah, just get back to the basics of safety. That's what can prevent a lot of accidents, in the woods or on the water, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, so.
Well, thanks again, Leon.
Yeah, no problem. And hopefully this will maybe give somebody cause to take a pause and think better of doing something that might have got them hurt at some point.
Yep. Leon's story is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that no matter how experienced you are, how confident you feel, or how small a shortcut might seem, you always have to stop, breathe, and think it through. One quick decision can turn into a life-threatening situation in seconds. If you'd like to book a hunt with Leon at Clark Fork Outfitters in Clark Fork, Idaho, to chase elk, deer, bear, moose, mountain lions, or bobcats, I'll leave a link in the podcast description and on my Facebook and Instagram page. And as always, stay safe out there and enjoy all that Mother Nature has to offer. If you like what you heard today, click the subscribe button to hear more upcoming stories. If you or someone you know have a survival story you'd like to share, contact me at isurvivethewildoutdoors@gmail.com.